Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cami Ewalt and I am the creator of Alottle Tumbler tutorials. If this is your first time to my channel, thank you for stopping by. I hope you find value out of the videos that I make here. If you do, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. Today I want to talk about the necessities that you absolutely need to be able to create a tumbler. Most of the time it's a glitter tumbler. I also want to go into some of the extras that I find to be helpful, and then also kind of list off a lot of the fun stuff that you can get into that as the time goes by I'll be able to make videos on each one of those things. But if that's something that you're interested in, stick around, we'll get started. Alrighty, so first things first. I talked about it in the last video, but definitely you want to make sure that you have your personal protective equipment. The first thing that I'm going to bring up is an organic vapor respirator. There is a difference, so if you want to know the difference, check out my last video. Another thing that might be helpful is like just a dust mask, like a painter's dust mask. To use when you're sanding epoxy in between coats or something like that. Something that's just going to help protect your lungs. You're also going to want nitrile gloves. There is a difference, so definitely nitrile. I again went into the specifics on why nitrile in my last video, but get yourself some nitrile gloves, not latex or plastic or vinyl, nothing like that, nitrile. You're obviously going to need a tumbler. I get my stainless steel tumblers from Makerflow Crafts. They have a great selection and probably the best prices around. You want to do stainless steel tumblers because they're solid and stable. They're not going to flex and potentially pull away from that epoxy. They're also, stainless steel is double wall vacuum sealed, so it's not going to sweat. You're not risking any kind of moisture kind of trying to seep out into your epoxy and causing some havoc there. Epoxy also really likes to stick to metal. So you're going to need some epoxy. Epoxies come in two parts, part A and part B. Part A being the resin, B being the hardener. I use Artisan Art from DIYepoxy.com, and I like this epoxy because it's kind of thicker, so it provides more of kind of a full coverage. It has no VOCs. It is like super crystal clear, like glass, seriously, super shiny when it's done curing. It has amazing UV inhibitors in it, so like when you're using white glitter and stuff like that, it's not going to yellow. I found that I just haven't had the issues with the bubbles and stuff like that. You're always going to have some bubbles like when you're mixing and when you're putting your epoxy on your cup, but like I don't have excessive bubbles like I did with a product I used previously. So I really like this epoxy. So in prepping our tumblers, we sand and wash them, and then we base coat them with spray paint. So you could either use like white or black, or I like to use a color that is closest to the color of glitter that I'm using on the tumbler. And what that's going to do is if there's any sparse areas, it will kind of camouflage that. So instead of seeing that stainless steel tumbler through that sparse glitter area, you're going to see the coordinating paint color. So that way it's going to just kind of be cohesive and blend together, and you won't really even be able to tell. Another thing you're gonna want, so for your base coat, it can be flat, it can be gloss, satin, whatever, especially if you're using like the epoxy method to adhere your glitter. All of those are totally fine. You're also going to want a clear. You're gonna need probably both a matte and a gloss clear. There are situations where you'll need both of them, but I use this to seal like glitter if I don't want it to migrate anywhere, like if you have multiple colors of glitter on the same project. And this just helps to hold it all in place, so it's not, as you're smoothing on your epoxy, it's not going rogue and trying to get away from you. It's also good to seal like your water slides and quite a few other things, so definitely clear. You're gonna need a turner, a tumbler turner. You need a turner to be able to keep it moving so that that epoxy doesn't just like slope off or drip off or whatever. It's going to constantly keep it moving until it sets up completely. My husband built my turner. I've got a 6-cup turner, but I have heard really good things about, I think it's pronounced Moss Brothers, M-A-S-B-R-O-S, Moss Bros, which is on Amazon, and the Bowen LLC, which is on Etsy, and I'll put a link to both of those in the description. You want to wear kind of clothes that you don't really care about or don't mind if you get gunk on them, because a lot of times you will, and you're not getting epoxy out of your clothes once it's cured. Other helpful things would be like acetone, and you don't want like the polish remover acetone. You're gonna want like your acetone you find in the paint department of your hardware store. 100% acetone is what you're looking for. Also helpful is 91% alcohol. The difference between 91% and like your normal 70% alcohol is that 91% alcohol is less watered down. So epoxy has kind of a sticky substance and is hard to get off, but like alcohol, acetone, things like that will actually cut right through it and help get it off really fast. Some helpful things that I have found that aren't necessary are like these little pumps. I got these off of Amazon. I have one for my acetone, one for my alcohol. They're just really quick. You just dab on them and go. Also, some other things that I found to be helpful were I put my part A and my part B in these plastic condiment bottles that I got off of Amazon. They're really cheap, and as my epoxy starts to age, then I can just throw them away and refill with new ones. Something else that's kind of helpful is like when you're stripping cups or when you're cleaning out the inside of your cup at the end and you're using the 100% acetone, acetone is very drying. So I have found these chemical resistant gloves like you would use for like house cleaning and things like that. They're really helpful to help protect your hands and your manis and things like that from the acetone and drying out and stuff. Okay, so when we start talking about like prepping our tumblers, which I'll do a video on actually next week, a lot of people will use like a sandpaper, like a 220 grit sandpaper, and sand their tumbler and then wash it with like Dawn dish soap and water. I like to use these Scotch-Brite Advanced Extreme Scrubbies. They're super aggressive, but I'm using them in the sink with, I made some DIY soft scrub. I'll talk about that next week too, but it's kind of like the whole wet sand method, to where you're not kicking up any extra dust or debris or anything like that that you're potentially breathing in. It just washes right down the sink. And so I really, really like this setup. You could also use these scrub pads with like just your Dawn dish soap, but in the soft scrub that I made, it's got like a baking soda, so you've got a little bit of extra grit to it and sanitizing. Another product you could use is DIYepoxy.com has a sanding compound called Final Sand that you also use with, they've got some scrubbing pads that they sell as a kit. That's actually, that can be helpful as well. Okay, so something else that's helpful for me, when you have, so you have part A, part B of your epoxy system. Part A is a thicker consistency. So a lot of people, myself included, heat up part A to make it thinner. So when you're mixing in part B, it introduces way less bubbles. You're still gonna get some as you're mixing, but nothing near if you just left it the way it was. So you can use a cup of hot water. You want it warm but not boiling. Some people have used stuff like a baby bottle warmer. I use just a candle warmer because it's what I had on hand. I make wax melts as well, but this works really well. I just put a coffee cup of water on top of it while it's on, with my condiment bottle with my part A in it inside the glass of water, and let it warm up for probably about half hour to an hour. I want to note here though that you want to make sure that you don't get not even one drop of water anywhere in your epoxy system, because it can throw off your mixture, your mix ratio, and cause it not to cure completely and can be tacky. It can also be cloudy and create bubbles, which obviously we don't want. You're gonna want some of these graduated medicine cups that have the little, I don't know if you can see on there, has little, oops, wrong way, measurements on the side. You want to make sure that they're completely smooth on the inside, so as you're mixing you can get every little part of that epoxy. Alternately, you could use a silicone little mixing cup measure thing. I got them off at Amazon. I tried using them and then I switched back to the medicine cups because I could not figure out how to get all the little bits inside out once it dried. But there was just recently a post on one of the Tumbler groups that talked all about it, and I learned some tips and tricks. So I will try this again. That way I'm not being wasteful. You're gonna want to have something to stir your epoxy with. These are stainless steel metal coffee stirring sticks. You could use silicone stirring sticks. When I first got started, I had just a whole bunch of extra plastic butter knives from like supper parties and events that I'd thrown over the years. We just always had so many extra butter knives, and I'm a hoarder and don't like to throw anything away, so it came in very useful. A lot of people will use popsicle sticks. I've heard some controversy over that because they're wood, it's porous and could possibly introduce bubbles in. I'm not sure. I've never used a popsicle stick, so I don't know. Something else that has been very helpful for me are these tack cloths. They're a painter's tack cloth. So it's like a cheesecloth consistency. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it has something in with it. To me, it almost kind of feels like Vaseline, but it doesn't leave any residue on your cup. But I take it and I wipe over my cup right before I do the final coat of epoxy, And this has been a game changer in making sure that I get a smooth finish. It takes all the dust and debris, anything that could potentially be left on my cup from like paper towels or drying it with a towel or anything like that. Fantastic. Okay, so to sand your cup, especially around the rim, you're gonna want either like a sanding block or sandpaper. I personally use a palm sander, an orbital palm sander with an 80 grit sand disc on it, and that's what I use to sand around the edges of my cups. I'm gonna do a video on how to finish a cup and all of that. Something that's been very helpful to me is this little 3-minute sand timer. So my epoxy says to mix it for 3 minutes, and I always was forgetting to set a timer on my phone, or I'd look at the clock and note what time I started, but then get lost in thought or something like that and completely forget. So this has been really handy to just at a glance know where I am in my mixing process. Some things to have on hand for different reasons. Tin foil, maybe some butcher paper. Those are really good to like lay down on your workstation to help catch drips or anything like that. Wax paper is good for either catching the glitter underneath your cup as you're sprinkling your glitter on, or when you're layering different colors of vinyl, and I'll teach you guys a trick in a future video of how to get perfect layered vinyl. Also, parchment paper is really good to catch your glitter when you're glittering your cups. That way you can just put it all back into the container, whatever's left over, and you're not wasting. So probably nobody would ever need all of these. I just always get sets of stuff. So like makeup brushes and paint brushes. A lot of times people will use a chip brush for just a cheap little chip brush for their wood grain cups. I personally like, I don't know where there it is. I like to use a makeup brush. Obviously this one is well loved. I like the way that my wood grain comes out with this, and I'm going to do a video on that as well. But I like having different sizes of brushes for different projects just to be able to have them on hand. Something else you might use is like a foam brush for like spreading on Mod Podge or stuff like that. Maybe even like acrylic paint if you ever use acrylic paint for anything. With Mod Podge, they have something called a Taklon brush that is really soft bristled, so it helps to almost eliminate any lines that you have when you're putting your Mod Podge on, if you do Mod Podge to adhere your glitter to your cup. So that way, because if you have lines left in your Mod Podge and you glitter over that, those lines are going to be visible in your glitter. Something else that you might consider is this is a silicone paintbrush. I use this to help squeegee out water from under my water slides, and I'm going to do a video on water slides later. One of the other techniques is called a tacket method, and for that you're going to need this tacket over and over glue by Aleene's. And usually people will just use their finger to rub over it. Again, I'm going to do a video on this, so it'll make sense when I do the video. But I have found this, it's a foundation makeup sponge, but works phenomenal to rub your glitter to do that tacket method with the holographic glitter. Creates this beautiful prismatic, like nothing else that I've been able to come close to when I'm doing anything with glitter. having a ruler or multiple rulers if you misplace them all the time like I do. I also have a fabric measuring tape that like a seamstress would use. Works really, really well to like measure your circumference of your cups and all kinds of things, really. I don't know if I mentioned already, but a cutting machine like a Cricut or a Silhouette often goes hand in hand with cups. That way you can make your own decals and your vinyl lettering and all of that stuff. If you're doing any kind of like cloth cups or vinyl wraps or anything like that, a cup edging tool, it has a razor blade, but it just goes right along the edge of your cup so you get a really crisp, clean line. That's really handy. Not necessary, but Plasti Dip is really handy when we're doing water slides. It creates a kind of a rubberized material on your water slide to keep it from being so fragile, so it's not just ripping all the time when you're trying to transfer it from your water slide back into the tumbler. And I use this almost every day. Polyacrylic is what I use to seal like my vinyl, my water slides, really anything that might cause that epoxy to repel and create fish eyes or anything like that. Polyacrylic is amazing stuff. Something else you might consider is like maybe a small space heater for warming up your cups, like before you use the epoxy method to glitter your tumbler, or even to put next to your cups to help them cure faster or cure more completely if it's like cold in your room or your area. You can use a heat gun to warm up your cup, blow dryer, really anything. I use a blow dryer because I'm super impatient. And so I use a blow dryer to dry the sealant on my water slides. Another thing that's come in super helpful is a small level. Like I'll put it at the edge of the rim of my cup while it's on my turner, and that way I know for sure that it's level. So because if your turner is not level, your cup's not level, if it dips even slightly, that epoxy is going to move to one side and you're going to wind up with a lip of like bubbled epoxy, and it's not pretty. Lots of different tools that you can use, like for vinyl you have a pen or your pick. I like this one for like when we do peekaboos. It's a little bit sturdier than the pen, and that way I can really get in there and pick out the stuff for peekaboos, which we'll go over in a future video. Something else that's helpful often is like a craft knife or an X-Acto blade, X-Acto knife, something like that. Those are super helpful. With doing epoxy, once you lay down your epoxy, generally you're gonna leave it for a few minutes to let any underlying micro bubbles or anything rise to the top, and then you're gonna go over it with a torch. So this is a butane torch that you would use for like creme brulee or something like that in the kitchen. A lot of people also use a propane torch with like a camp fuel attached to it or something like that, just a cylinder of propane. Some people use a heat gun. I feel like the reason companies recommend like a torch is because bubbles are air, and the fire from the torch needs oxygen to get going, so it kind of sucks that oxygen out of the bubbles, thus eliminating the bubbles. My own personal opinion, nobody shoot me. So when you're finishing your cup up, you're going to use probably your craft knife like around the rim of the cup, and I'm going to do a video on how to finish a cup. You're going to use acetone. You're going to use, I don't know where it went. I tear off like a part of a magic eraser and kind of dab it in some acetone, and it takes off whatever is on the inside of my cup. I love it. So those are some of the major, like, kind of what I feel are necessary or helpful things. Some of the other things that you might consider that are completely optional and just fun and stuff that I've just been building and building and building. Obviously for glitter tumblers, we're gonna need glitter. You have metallic glitter, which is this one. Kind of like that, just a straight metallic glitter. You have holographic, which has kind of a rainbow tint or a rainbow offcast to it. You have iridescent, which is more of a clear glitter but has a soft shimmer and a hint of color. You have chunky or chunky mixes. This one happens to be a holographic chunky mix, which is double the fun. I get my glitters from Grateful Glitters. I love, love, love this company. One, it is run by an amazing couple. Two, they have a great selection of not just glitters, but mica powders and alcohol inks and molds and glow-in-the-dark powders and marabou, easy marbling stuff for like your water marbles. Really, they have a huge selection, and like on their glitters, they have buy 3 get 1 free every day. You don't have to wait for a sale, and they're super fast shipping. I love, love, love this company. Everything I'm talking about, I'll put links to in the description. Some helpful things is like masking tape or painter's tape. I got this in a pack of many different widths, which has come in handy for several different projects. Seems like I always need different widths for different stuff. Electrical tape for like when you're taping off the rim of your water bottles and stuff like that, or the threading of your water bottles. 1, epoxy doesn't stick to electrical tape, and 2, it creates a super solid seal to where no epoxy is getting up under there. Something else to think about is double-sided tape, which is going to come in really handy for like our buffalo check or plaid tumblers, which we're going to do a video on later. Fun stuff like you can put material on tumblers. You can use, these are full arm temporary tattoos, you know, like we used to do the little ones for our kids when they were little, temporary tattoos. You can use them on tumblers. If I didn't mention it already, Mod Podge. Mod Podge is kind of a almost necessity. It's good for a lot of different things. So some of the things that I use on a regular basis, water slide paper. There is clear and there is white water slide paper. Both have a purpose and a time for use. There is inkjet and laser printable vinyl to where you can print your own designs and put them on just like regular vinyl onto your tumblers. These are double-sided. These are sheets of double-sided, essentially double-sided tape. These are really good. Like LB Creates has templates that camo templates and Pendleton templates and lots of different geometrical shapes and stuff like that that you can cut out on your Cricut or your Silhouette onto these and just put the glitter right over them. Phenomenal and easy. We'll be doing a video on that. There's glow-in-the-dark powder, there's mica powder, there's color shift glitter, there's color shift mica powder, there's chromatone mica powder where it looks like it's changing color as you shift the tumbler. You have stuff that can be helpful with other stuff. Like you have a medium for mixing with acrylic paints for like a dirty pour. All of these things that I'm mentioning we'll be doing a video on eventually. One video at a time, obviously. Stuff like this is a crackle medium that's gonna give you that kind of weathered wood look on some, not the wood grain look, it's a different technique. You can also just use Elmer's glue, like that white Elmer's school glue. You can get sticker paper to where you can print your own stickers, or you can use stickers just like from dollar store or Walmart or wherever. At any rate, like stuff like striping tape, this was sent to me by my friend Kim in Arizona, but can provide some really amazing finishing touches for like your plaids and separating colors that you have on your tumblers. Really almost anything can go on or in a tumbler. The sky is the limit. So if there's any question on anything I've covered, or maybe I didn't cover something and you have a question on something, let me know. If you want to see a video on anything specific that I might have mentioned or that you just have heard of or anything, let me know. Please leave it down in the comments. I'm super grateful that you're here. I'm super thankful to be in this position, to be able to help people and teach people, and I am excited. Next week we're going to get into how to prep a tumbler for a glittered epoxy tumbler, so stick around for that. And I will release a video every Thursday, as Lord willing and the creek don't rise. But let me know what y'all think. I'll see you next time, and I hope you guys have a great week. Bye.